morning, my friends at Northwest. This is Mrs. Graves here. So, fun fact about me that you probably don't know is that in addition to making art and loving art and being an art teacher, I also own a food truck called the Rollin' Rooster. So today I'm inside my kitchen, inside the Rollin' Rooster, and I wanted to make a cooking club video for you. So I had lots of friends in the second grade this year that got to do cooking club with me on Thursdays. So today what I want to show you how to do is I want to make pretzels, homemade pretzels, like the kind you get at Aunt Annie's. So today that's what I'm going to be working on. But I just want to give you a tour of my truck before we get started. So this is the Rollin' Rooster, and we specialize in making fried chicken. So this is what it looks like inside of a real food truck. It's kind of small in here. It's like 16 feet. Can kind of hold about 3 of us when we're in here working. I'm going to take you outside so you can see the outside of it. And actually all the artwork on this is my artwork. So I painted these chickens and I took them to a graphic designer and they scanned it and they created this really cool design for me. My favorite part is actually on the back of the trailer. So I want to show that to you. So my rooster down here, that was a painting, it was a small little painting, an 8x8 painting of a chicken I did, got blown up and made huge for the side of our food truck. All right, I'm gonna start making pretzels and I'm gonna share that video with you. So for this project, I've gathered my ingredients and my materials. So the first thing I've got is I've got a recipe and I've got sourdough starter. So sourdough starter, this is one I started at the beginning of our COVID quarantine, where we were the first week that school got closed. So this has been on my counter since the very beginning. And what it is it's flour and water, and you mix it and you set it on the counter and you leave it lightly covered, and every day you feed it. So you pour out some and then you mix equal parts of water and flour in it. And then you pour some off and you use it and you bake bread with it, and then you just keep adding to it. You keep feeding it. So it's something that when you're not using it, you can store it in the refrigerator and then you feed it once a week. But if it's out on the counter, you feed it every day. So it's taking naturally occurring yeast out of the environment, and it's using that with the flour and water to make a mixture called sourdough starter that will cause your bread to rise. So this is a really great thing to use if you do not have yeast. So I do have some yeast that I got from Aldi's. So you could do pretzels one of 2 ways. You could use a sourdough starter that takes a couple days to start, or you can just use dry active yeast with your flour. So for this recipe, it says I need a cup of sourdough starter, I need 1 1/4 cups of warm water, and I need 3 1/2 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour, or you could use bread flour, which is what I'm going to do. Bread flour just has a little bit more protein in it, so it tends to make a nicer bread-like product. All-purpose flour is great. You can use it for cakes, muffins, pancakes, kind of everything, and that's probably what most of you are going to have in your kitchen. You also need a tablespoon of sugar for this and 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt. And then part of the process is after our dough sits and rises and we're able to shape it into pretzels, we're going to actually take boiling water and baking soda, and we're going to boil the pretzels before we bake them, and that's what gives them that brown pretzel-y look. Okay, so I've got 1 cup of sourdough starter that I'm going to put in a bowl, and then I'm going to add 1 1/4 cups of water to it. And you can do this by hand, or if you have a stand mixer, you can use that. And then I'm gonna mix it up with a whisk so it gets nice and thin. And then I'm gonna add 2 cups of flour to make a smooth batter. And then I'm gonna cover it and I'm gonna let it sit for 30 to 60 minutes. So it's the water, the starter, and flour. and then we're gonna let it sit for 30 to 60 minutes. So 2 cups of flour. As you add the flour, it might start to get a little bit harder to stir, but this is what we're looking for, and not to spill. So I don't know if you guys can see that. And I'm gonna keep mixing it till it's nice and smooth, and then I'm gonna cover it and let it sit. So I've taken my 2 cups of flour, a cup of sourdough starter, and 1 1/4 cups of water, and I've mixed it. And now I've covered my bowl, and I'm gonna let it sit for 30 to 60 minutes. Then I'm gonna come back to it, and what I'm gonna add to it is I'm gonna add my sugar and my salt. And if I'm using a stand mixer like a KitchenAid, I'm gonna use the hook attachment, and I'm gonna knead this for 5 minutes. But I'm gonna be doing this by hand, so I'm gonna actually be flouring a surface and hand kneading this for 5 minutes when we come back to it in about an hour. Okay, so I've let my dough sit for a little while, maybe a little bit longer than what it was supposed to, but it's okay. We're gonna add a tablespoon of sugar and 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt. And the remaining flour. So I added 2 cups of flour already, so I'm gonna add 1 1/2 cups. Because total it calls for 3 1/2. There's 1. There's a half. Now I'm gonna knead this for 5 minutes by hand, or you can use your KitchenAid stand mixer if you have one, but kneading it by hand is the fun part. So in order to knead it by hand, I'm going to flour a surface, and I'm using a countertop that's stainless steel. So I'm going to turn this, I'm going to mix it with my hands in the bowl. Just try to work it all in. And then I'm going to turn it out onto here, getting every little drop, and I'm going to knead it. So kneading is kind of almost like working with clay. So it's kind of folding it on itself and turning it. Just turn this so you can see a little bit better. So we're turning and folding, turning and folding, turning and folding. And we're going to do this for about 5 minutes. And then we're going to return it to a bowl that we have greased lightly with a little bit of oil. We're going to let it sit covered at room temperature. And after 30 minutes, we're going to uncover the bowl. We're going to lift one side of the dough and fold it back into the middle. And we're going to repeat this until we've done all 3 sides. Then we're going to set it back again, cover it, let it set for another 3 minutes, and we're going to repeat that procedure. Then we're going to cover it and we're going to let it sit for 60 minutes. After 60 minutes, the dough should be lively and elasticy and airy. If the dough's still sluggish, we got to give it another hour or 2 at room temp. Then we're going to cover it tightly and we're going to put it in the refrigerator overnight. So we're not going to be able to actually make our pretzels until tomorrow. So right now I'm still kneading it, trying to work all this flour in, and then we're going to let it sit for 30 minutes, and then we'll come back to it. So the kneading is the fun part. So knead your dough for 5 minutes, and then put it in an oiled bowl, and let it sit covered for 30 minutes. So after you've kneaded it, this is what it should look like. And I've taken a little bit of oil on a paper towel, and I've greased my bowl, and I'm going to put this in it, and I'm going to cover it with saran wrap, and I'm going to come back in 30 minutes. All right, boys and girls, good morning. This is day 2 of pretzel making. So I've taken my dough out of the refrigerator. I've got some flour on my counter. I have parchment paper to line my tray. I have water boiling with a 1/3 cup of baking soda. I've got some oil to grease my cookie sheet with my parchment paper. I have some egg whites, And I just discovered I don't have any salt for pretzels. And I thought I had some of that bagel, everything bagel topping. Can't find it. So we've decided we're going to make cinnamon and sugar pretzels. So we've got some sugar and some cinnamon that we're going to use to sprinkle on top. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take the dough out of the bowl and we're going to divide it into pieces. So we have cut our dough into 12 pieces and now we're going to start to roll it out into like a rope. So we're trying to make like a long snake. All right, so we've got our snake and now we're going to turn it into a pretzel. So Elliot, let me show it how to do it on one. So I'm going to show you how to do it on this one. We're going to take it. We're going to twist the top a couple of times like this. And then we're going to bring it down and form our pretzel.
I don't know how to.
So it kind of looks like that. Dough is just fun to play with, huh? Sometimes the dough is just... If you didn't want to twist it, you could also just cut them into pieces and make pretzel bites. But it's kind of fun just to twist the dough, right, guys?
Yeah.
And to play with it.
Yeah.
But your goal is to try and make them so they actually look like pretzels, like this. So here comes the fun part. Now we're going to boil them in water for 10 seconds on each side. So you're just going to let them go in, count to 10, then we're going to flip them over. And get the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This process of putting them in the water with the baking soda is what makes them so that they have that brown color like a traditional pretzel. After we've done it to all of them, we're going to bake them at 475 for 15 minutes. But before we do that, we're going to take and we're going to brush the ones that we boiled with egg white. And we're going to sprinkle them with your topping. So either we're doing cinnamon and sugar, you can put salt or everything bagel seasoning. It's completely up to you.
I need to step on it.
So Libby's painting the egg white on and then she's going to put cinnamon and sugar on them. Elliot, on the other hand, has decided that he likes to eat the cinnamon and sugar and he likes to play with the flour. So then these are going to bake at 475 for 15 minutes.
I need to put that on here. Do you
That's
want?
not for eating like that.
I'm gonna splash it. Splash, 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 splash.
Nope, that's egg white.
Mommy,
So after 15 minutes of baking, we decided that our pretzels needed some sauce. So we mixed confectionery sugar and water and a little bit of vanilla. And we made a sweet dipping sauce that's kind of like the topping that's on a cinnamon bun. Is it delicious? We hope you try this at home. Say bye.